The sound of flags folding is softer than grief. Beneath a bruised sky, soldiers stand in perfect stillness as the final bugle fades into the wind. A single German shepherd sits near the casket, motionless, ears low, sensing a farewell beyond command. Sergeant Lucas Hale's eyes stay locked on the flag, his breathing shallow, his hearing still haunted by the ringing echo of war. When the salutes end, the silence that remains feels heavier than the ceremony itself. Somewhere behind the line of uniforms, a Marine whispers the word hero, but Lucas doesn't hear it. He feels only the weight of a leash that's no longer there. A folded collar rests in his hand. Rax, canine, his fallen partner. As the rain begins, it's not sorrow that moves him, but a strange numbness. The world retreats into fog, as if even the air is learning to be quiet again. Camp Hale wakes beneath a shroud of gray. Fog rolls off the ocean, swallowing fences, lights, and morning drills in its cold breath. Somewhere beyond the motor pool, the sound of boots striking gravel becomes uncertain, swallowed by distance. Lucas leads a patrol across the training perimeter, his gait deliberate, his left leg stiff from shrapnel that healed wrong. The silence here is deceptive, layered with hums of unseen generators and gulls crying over the cliffs. Then a sound cuts through, faint, rhythmic, wrong, not machinery. A scrape, then a whimper. The men stop. Flashlights slice through mist toward a half-collapsed storage shed. Inside a cracked wooden crate, something trembles. Wet fur, shallow breath, wide amber eyes reflecting light like liquid glass. Lucas kneels. The creature doesn't bark. It can't. Its throat bears a scar like a stitched whisper. The fog thickens around them, binding man and animal in a hush deeper than fear.
Metal tools clang softly as the soldiers pry open the warped crate. The scent of rust, seawater, and wet wood fills the air. Inside lies a German shepherd pup, soaked, skeletal, but alive. The animal's chest rises with uneven rhythm, its ribs visible beneath a coat of tangled sable and ash. Lucas removes his gloves and reaches in, ignoring the sting of splinters. The pup doesn't retreat, it only stares, trembling yet unyielding. As Lucas lifts it, the heartbeat beneath his hands feels fragile, like something deciding whether to keep living. A faint wheeze escapes the dog's throat. Not a bark, not a cry, only air finding its way through scar tissue. One of the soldiers mutters a quiet prayer. Lucas wraps the pup in his field jacket, presses it against his chest, and stands. Around them, the fog folds tighter. For a moment, even the base seems to hold its breath. By dawn, the base is fully awake. Sirens fade, trucks ignite, orders slice through the cold. In the medical unit, fluorescent light hums above disinfected metal tables. Dr. Hannah Seo's voice drifts between instruments, calm and precise. Lucas stands nearby, jacket still damp from fog. The pup lies sedated under a thin thermal blanket, oxygen tube humming softly. Examination reveals the truth. Crushed vocal cords, scarring from an old injury likely man-made. He'll never bark, she writes in her notes. Lucas watches the small chest rise and fall, feeling a strange ache that isn't pity, it's recognition. Command later assigns the animal to his temporary custody until kennel capacity clears. The paperwork feels cold in his hand, but the weight of the crate memory lingers warmer. Outside, the wind rattles the flag against its pole. Duty begins again, though this one doesn't wear a uniform or answer to command.
The barracks hum with faint electricity, heaters, breathing, unseen whispers through walls. Lucas sits on the edge of his bunk, boots still on, staring at the bundle of fur curled near his feet. The pup sleeps lightly, chest rising fast, paws twitching in dream. Outside, rain beats steady against glass. When lightning flashes, the dog doesn't startle. Instead, it lifts its head, eyes glassy with reflection, watching Lucas as if reading his pulse. Somewhere deep within that silence, something shifts. The rhythmic breathing of soldier and dog aligns, imperfect at first, then seamless. Lucas exhales slower, his heartbeat matching the pup's quiet pattern. For the first time in months, the walls don't feel like they're closing in. The room smells of wet earth, gun oil, and life trying to stay alive. As sleep takes him, the storm outside continues, but inside, a fragile calm begins to form. Morning light slices through the blinds, pale and uninviting. The pup lies on the examination table again, still wrapped in Lucas's field jacket. Dr. Seo adjusts her scope, listening, recording, studying. Her hands move with the detached empathy of someone who has seen too much pain made routine. Damage is permanent, her expression seems to say, though words never leave her mouth. She gestures for Lucas to look. The camera reveals scarring across soft pink tissue where sound once lived. He doesn't speak either. Silence becomes the third presence in the room. She hands him the report. He doesn't take it. Instead, his gaze lingers on the dog's chest, its rise and fall. No noise, no complaint, just endurance. Outside, drills thunder across the parade ground, each shout bouncing off sterile walls. In that quiet moment, Lucas realizes survival doesn't always sound like victory. Sometimes it sounds like nothing.
Later that week, a pattern emerges. Whenever Lucas taps his finger on the table, once, twice, the dog lifts its paw, copying the rhythm. The Marines notice and start teasing lightly, calling him the Morse code dog. Lucas doesn't correct them. The name fits. It feels earned, not given. Soon, the pup responds to light gestures, head tilts, blinks, subtle shifts of muscle. A wordless communication begins. Around them, base life continues. Engines roar, sand kicks up, orders barked across distance. But wherever Morse sits, quiet follows, like the world agrees to lower its volume. Lucas catches himself timing his movements to the animal's calm precision, a mirror built from instinct. The barracks, once filled with clang and chatter, now carry something else. Rhythm. Not music, not command, just two wounded creatures learning to breathe the same silent language. During morning drills, Lucas marches across the gravel yard, the limp in his stride betraying an old injury. Beside him trots Morse, matching the imperfection perfectly, left paw dragging just slightly behind. Some of the soldiers laugh, calling it mimicry, but to Lucas it's something deeper, an echo made flesh. Each morning, the pup waits by the door, tail low, ready. When Lucas stretches, Morse stretches. When he halts, the dog freezes, gaze locked forward like a recruit in formation. The commanding officer notices, but says nothing. Discipline takes many shapes. Beneath the metallic clang of rifles and the hum of distant engines, this small duet unfolds daily. A soldier remembering routine through a creature who never learned it. By evening, when Lucas logs his training report, he pauses mid-sentence. His pain scale reads lower than usual. Without thinking, he writes beside it, possible cause, presence of Morse. By the second week, others begin to feel it too. Recruits who struggle with restlessness sit near the pup during breaks and find their breathing slowing. The mess hall, usually a storm of metal trays and shouting, quiets whenever Morse appears. Dr. Kao starts charting data, pulse rates, temperature, stress response. Numbers fall steadily. Environmental influence, canine presence, her notes read. But science can't quantify what the soldiers whisper. The dog listens. Even Captain Pike, stern and unmoved, lingers longer near the kennels now. In the evenings, Lucas walks the perimeter, Morse trotting beside him, both shadows cutting across the dim floodlights. Somewhere between their footsteps, calm takes form. Not forced, not fragile, earned. Weeks bleed together, drills repeating like clockwork, but something small begins to change. During inspection, Morse sits beside Lucas, unmoving, disciplined, his gaze fixed on nothing and everything at once. When a recruit drops his rifle by accident, the metallic clang echoes sharply. For a split second, everyone flinches, everyone except Morse. The pup simply blinks, unshaken. Lucas feels laughter building somewhere in his chest, rusty and forgotten. It escapes, short and genuine. The platoon turns, surprise, relief, warmth. Later, in his room, Lucas finds the old collar of Rax folded in his drawer. He places it beside Morse's leash, not out of comparison, but acknowledgement. Outside, night settles over Camp Hale, the ocean wind moving gently through flagpoles. For the first time since the desert, Lucas sleeps without waking in sweat. The silence no longer haunts him. It heals.
Morning sunlight spills over the base like liquid brass. Inside the medical lab, Dr. Hannah Seo adjusts her equipment, sensors blinking faintly on a monitor. A soft pulse line rises and falls in measured rhythm, each dip steadier than yesterday. The subject, Private Wells, prone to panic episodes. The variable, the silent dog sitting 3 feet away. Morse's chest moves with unhurried precision, tail still. Wells's pulse slows to match it. Hannah watches the numbers fall and exhales softly, a scientist humbled by the quiet. Lucas stands at the doorway, arms crossed, observing not data but trust. Around them, noise returns, distant drills, radio chatter. Yet inside this room, the air stays still. Hannah writes in her notes, heart rate synchronized in presence of canine, nonverbal co-regulation observed. Lucas doesn't need science to understand. The dog is teaching them all to listen without sound. Sleep comes to Camp Hale in waves. Engines die, lights dim. Conversations fade into the hum of the Pacific. For Lucas, rest is still a battlefield. When he lies down, the ceiling vibrates with old explosions that exist only in memory. He feels the pressure in his chest, the phantom heat. Then, a faint movement. Morse shifts closer, head resting across his boot. Their breathing sinks, one rhythm taming another. The nightmares recede, replaced by the quiet scratch of claws against fabric. Outside, a truck backfires, and the echo flashes like gunfire in Lucas's mind. But the weight of the dog steadies him. Minutes stretch, heartbeats align, and the barracks fall into genuine silence. By dawn, Lucas is still, eyelids heavy. For the first time in years, he wakes before the alarm, calm rather than startled, as if some unseen frequency has rewritten the pattern of fear.
Morning drills unfold under a sky veined with pale clouds. Commanders bark orders, gravel crunches under synchronized boots. Morse walks at Lucas's side, leash loose, every step measured. When a trainee stumbles during cadence, the line ripples with laughter, but Morse glances back, steadying gaze meeting chaos. The recruit straightens, embarrassment melting into focus. Word spreads quickly. The mute dog keeps better order than half the sergeants. By midday, officers request Morse's presence during orientation sessions. He sits near the podium, head tilted, eyes soft yet unwavering. No bark, no command, yet recruits quiet themselves. Lucas watches from the back row, realizing discipline doesn't always come from volume. The pup's silence has authority born from peace. Outside, gulls dive through the fog, their cries dissolving into wind. For a base built on orders and noise, this new kind of control feels almost holy. By evening, clouds swell black above the coastline. Wind sharpens, tarps snap against steel. The meteorological channel crackles with alerts, gale incoming, possible power disruption. As generators hum to life, Morse grows restless, nose twitching, body tense. Lucas notices and kneels, sensing unease he can't yet name. Thunder rolls once, far away. Somewhere, a transformer pops, then darkness. The entire base exhales as lights vanish, replaced by the thin blue pulse of emergency bulbs. Rain lashes metal roofs, radios hiss with static. Orders echo through the corridors, boots thundering. Lucas grabs a flashlight, Morse pacing beside him. The beam cuts through water-filled air, revealing corridors that look suddenly foreign. In that heartbeat of blackout, Camp Hale feels less like fortress, more like labyrinth, and at its center, a silent guide ready to lead by instinct, not command.
Sirens erupt, thin and metallic, bleeding through the rain. Intruder alert, the intercom blares, words bouncing off wet concrete. Soldiers rush into formation, rifles gleaming under strobes of emergency light. Morse halts near a storage bay, ears raised toward a muffled cry. Lucas follows his pull, the beam finding movement beneath a half-collapsed barrier. A Marine pinned by debris, leg twisted. Water streams around him, eyes wide with pain. Without waiting for orders, Lucas shoves at the beam. Morse braces his body beside the injured man, steady as a wedge. Moments later, backup arrives. The alarms keep screaming, but the supposed intruder never appears. The cause? A shorted generator, sparks mistaken for breach. As medics lift the wounded Marine, he points toward the dog that found him. "That mutt saved me," he says. The alarms stop. What remains is rain, heartbeat, and gratitude measured in silence. Morning breaks clearer, the storm spent but leaving its signature, mud tracks, flooded trenches, and stories that travel faster than wind. By breakfast, everyone on base knows the mute dog found a fallen Marine in total darkness. Some call it coincidence, others whisper sixth sense. Lucas says nothing. He only watches as Morse trots between tables, tail modestly low, accepting silent pats. Captain Pike approaches, his usually stern face softened. "Good work," he says simply before walking on. Applause would ruin it. Later, Hannah photographs the dog for medical records, unaware that the image will circulate across the base bulletin, the silent sentinel. Beneath the caption, a simple line, "Saved one of our own." Lucas pins the photo to his locker door. The picture looks back at him like a mirror, reminding him that not every rescue wears a sound.
The following days settle into rhythm. Morning drills, field repairs, chow, patrols. Amid the routine, Morse becomes a fixture, a quiet constant threading through chaos. Recruits time their breathing with his movements. Some swear he can sense tension before arguments break out. Lucas, notebook in hand, begins documenting behavior. Heart rate slows 12 BPM in proximity, possible conditioned empathy. Yet he knows it's simpler than data. The dog absorbs chaos and exhales steadiness. During tactical briefings, Morse waits outside the room, tail sweeping gently across the floor in tempo with voices rising and falling. Even Captain Pike starts quoting him in jest. "Keep it Morse quiet, gentlemen." In a place built on command, obedience now sounds like composure. When the sun sets behind wire fences, the base feels less like confinement and more like alignment. A living organism learning balance from its smallest, quietest cell. Lucas sits alone in the rec room that night, pen moving across a blank page. It's been months since he wrote anything that wasn't a report. The notebook smells faintly of oil and old paper. Words come slow but steady. He listens better than anyone I've known. When he's near, the static fades. He pauses, unsure if he's writing about the dog or himself. From the corner, Morse shifts in sleep, paws twitching, muzzle pressed against an old combat boot. He adds another line. Maybe healing isn't loud, maybe it's patience. He closes the notebook, tucks it under his arm, and exhales. Outside, the sea wind hums through chain-link fences, a low, endless note like breath drawn by the planet itself. For the first time since Rax, Lucas feels his heart moving at the pace of the world again.
Before dawn, the drill yard is a canvas of silver fog and orange floodlight. Lucas moves through slow formations, hands guiding Morse through simple motions: sit, stay, follow. No spoken commands, only gestures and breath. The dog anticipates each movement as if thought and instinct share the same frequency. A few Marines stop to watch, whispering, not out of mockery, but awe. The rhythm between man and animal feels choreographed, like two halves of one muscle. Even when a loud clang from the armory rings out, Morse doesn't flinch. He adjusts his stance, steady, grounding his handler. As the first sunlight pierces fog, Lucas realizes his limp hurts less. Every repetition of this ritual carves peace into muscle memory. The bass loudspeakers announce morning roll call, voices filling the air. But for Lucas and Morse, the only sound that matters is the quiet between commands. In the observation wing, Dr. Seo reviews her compiled data. Graphs line the wall, cortisol levels down 40%, aggression reports halved, sleep duration improved across units. At the center of it all, one silent dog. She stands at the window, watching Morse lying under a patch of sunlight while soldiers pass by, each slowing unconsciously near him. Lucas approaches quietly. No salute, no conversation. They simply observe. "He changed the room," Hannah murmurs, mostly to herself. Lucas nods once. Outside, seagulls carve slow arcs above the parade ground. The wind carries the faint metallic scent of the ocean mixed with diesel and salt. Inside, stillness reigns, not emptiness, but composure. The doctor writes her final note for the day. Therapeutic presence confirmed. For Lucas, confirmation came long ago, the night he slept without dreams. Science is only catching up to what silence already knew.
The coast sleeps under a bruised horizon when the fog returns, heavier than memory. It rolls inland like a tide without sound, swallowing the chain-link fences, floodlights, and outlines of watchtowers. The base feels suspended, its heartbeat slow and uncertain. Lucas leads the midnight patrol, flashlight beam cutting thin paths through vapor that looks alive. The men move in silence, the dog pacing beside them, every step deliberate. Even the radios struggle, their signals muffled, distorted. Somewhere deep in the haze, a metallic clang rings out, one sound too human to ignore. Morse halts, body tensing, head lifting toward the northern fence line. The mist thickens. Lucas raises his fist to halt the squad. For a breathless moment, all motion stops, a tableau of silhouettes frozen inside the white void, every ear tuned to a sound that might be nothing or might be the beginning of something. The first alarm blares sharp and shrill, slicing through the fog like steel tearing fabric. Red strobes ignite across Camp Hale, painting walls and faces in flashing bloodlight. Perimeter breach, the loudspeakers echo, distorted by weather. Boots slam the ground, engines roar to life. The night transforms from quiet vigilance to organized panic. Lucas signals his team forward, Morse lunging slightly ahead, tail rigid, eyes fixed toward movement unseen. The air smells of ozone and salt. Even breathing feels electric. Floodlights cut vertical pillars through the fog, but each beam finds only swirling air. Somewhere, metal collapses, followed by a muffled shout. Lucas grips his weapon tighter but keeps focus on the dog, who suddenly veers left, barking silently, mouth open, soundless urgency. Without waiting for confirmation, Lucas follows him into the blank gray, guided not by orders, but by trust written in motion rather than words.
Visibility drops to a few feet. The world dissolves into silver ghosts, fences, barrels, the vague geometry of storage units half seen and half imagined. Lucas's boots splash through shallow puddles, Morse darting ahead, stopping, glancing back. Then, a shape on the ground. A man,
The beam of Lucas's flashlight catches fatigues streaked with mud, a leg twisted under a fallen barrier. The Marine's breathing is fast, shallow, his radio crackles but dies again in static. Lucas drops beside him, assessing, pressing a hand to a pulse. Morse circles once, then plants himself beside the injured man, pressing his shoulder against his ribs. Steady pressure, grounding, instinctive first aid learned from no one. Rain falls harder, metallic against tin roofs. "You're all right," Lucas mutters, internally, not aloud. He waves his team in from the haze. The world outside the circle of light remains unseen, humming with distant alarms. Medics arrive, faces wet, gloves snapping, stretchers unfolding. The red emergency lights cast everything in surreal hues, uniforms glowing crimson, raindrops flashing like sparks. Morse doesn't move until they lift the Marine. He stays pressed close, heartbeat to heartbeat, as if ensuring the man stays conscious. Lucas helps secure the barrier with another officer. Metal groans under their grip. A gust of wind drives the fog aside for one fleeting instant, revealing the full damage. A storage unit's roof collapsed. No enemy intrusion, just storm fatigue. Yet the alarm keeps blaring, echoing through rain and confusion. Lucas looks down at the dog, soaked but unmoving, eyes locked on the stretcher. When the medics carry the wounded man away, Morse finally steps back, shaking off water like dust. The alarm ceases abruptly. The silence afterward is deafening, not relief, but awe.
Dawn rises, pale and exhausted. Camp Hale looks like a battlefield that never happened. Mud tracks, broken fencing, overturned gear. The official report reads, "Faulty generator explosion, no hostile contact." But the soldiers know the truth beneath bureaucracy. One man would have died alone if not for the silent dog's insistence. As cleanup crews move debris, Morse sits near the accident site, eyes half closed, calm as the air clears. Lucas stands nearby, hands in pockets, jaw set with quiet pride. No ceremony, no salutes, just understanding. Hannah finds him later, handing a towel for the dog. "He heard what we couldn't," she murmurs. Lucas nods, gaze distant toward the horizon where the fog burns away. Every soldier at the mess that morning lowers their voice when Morse enters. Respect doesn't need orders. It travels through air, invisible as instinct. By afternoon, the bulletin board outside the command office displays a new headline printed on standard issue paper, "The Silent Sentinel." Beneath it, a photo of Morse, eyes sharp, coat still damp from the storm. No medals, no decoration, just recognition inked in black. Soldiers passing by stop, nod once, move on. The base's usual noise returns, but softer now, shaped by awareness. In the training yard, a recruit drops a wrench, curses under breath, then catches himself, glancing toward the kennels as if not to disturb something sacred. Lucas sees it all from a distance, unsure whether to feel pride or discomfort. Heroism has never fit him well. He kneels beside Morse, rubbing behind one ear, and whispers words only the dog might understand. "Good work." The animal's eyes close, not in arrogance, but rest. Outside, the wind carries a new rhythm, quieter, steadier, learned from him.
Within days, the story spreads beyond the base. A local journalist calls it a miracle of instinct, featuring Morse's photo beside uniformed silhouettes in fog. Cameras arrive at the gate, reporters shouting questions. Lucas feels the same discomfort returning, the one that came after medals, after losses that didn't feel like victory. He avoids interviews, finding refuge in maintenance duties far from the crowd. Yet Morse becomes the center of quiet chaos. Visitors bringing treats, soldiers volunteering to train with him, strangers writing letters. The Bez cafeteria hangs a printout that reads, "Discipline can be silent too." In the midst of it all, Morse remains unchanged, still wordless, still calm. Lucas watches from a distance, thinking how some creatures absorb fame like air, visible only when the light hits right, invisible when it matters most. Captain Adrian Pike summons Lucas to his office. Commendation paperwork lies on the desk, sealed and signed. "Your dog's saving morale," Pike says. Lucas stands stiffly, unsure whether to salute or refuse. The captain's praise feels heavy, like a metal carved from noise. Outside the window, Morse waits patiently, staring at the reflection of clouds in the glass. Lucas knows what's coming. Public appearances, photo ops, training demonstrations. He leaves the office with the papers unsigned. Later in the mess hall, whispers follow him. Not cruel, just curious. Even Hannah's expression carries a question she doesn't ask. That night, Lucas feeds Morse and sits against the wall. You don't need their applause, he thinks, watching the dog settle near his boots. Fame was never the mission. Survival was. Peace was. And both are already earned.
In the following weeks, the base adjusts to its newfound celebrity. Reporters come and go, documentaries request access, interviews air brief clips of Morse sitting stoic beneath flags. Each angle captures his silence as symbolism, though none can grasp its weight. During one film session, a photographer drops equipment, startling a group of recruits. Morse remains unshaken. Cameras click faster, headlines multiply. Courage without command, the dog who listens. Lucas watches the media truck roll out one evening, headlights vanishing beyond the hill. The base returns to normal volume. Later, he finds the pup asleep under his bunk, chin resting on a combat boot. He kneels, tracing a finger across the faded name stitched on the leash, Rax. The world might call this piece heroism, but to him, it's memory finding form again, not loud, but lasting. Weeks pass. Rain comes and goes, drills return to schedule, but something unspoken lingers across Camp Hale. Recruits eat slower, speak softer, carry themselves with a new patience. Even Captain Pike admits morale reports have improved. Lucas, once haunted by every echo, now walks the perimeter at sunset, Morse padding beside him, the leash slack, unnecessary. The air smells of salt and diesel, the colors of dusk bleeding across the hangars. For a fleeting moment, Lucas imagines Rax trotting beside Morse, two shadows overlapping, one past, one present. He exhales, steady. In the distance, the flag lifts under the evening wind, fabric whispering like breath. Camp Hale no longer sounds like a machine of orders and alarms. It breathes like something alive. Lucas stops, looks down at Morse, and thinks, the storm taught us this. Stillness isn't absence. It's survival made quiet.
Dawn breaks sharp and metallic, the kind of light that turns everything into reflection. The base hums at full readiness, vehicles aligned, smoke canisters stacked, voices layered in commands. Today's exercise is the largest of the quarter, simulated urban combat, sound blanks, smoke grenades, and timed detonations. Lucas checks his gear without thinking. Muscle memory does the remembering for him. Morse circles nearby, alert yet calm, tail stiff but not tense. Sirens mark the countdown. 1 minute, then 30 seconds, then silence before the chaos. When the first explosion hits, the ground shudders, dust rises like fog reborn. Lucas keeps formation, but Morse's eyes lock on him, reading every micro-flinch. Through the haze of artificial fire, the pair move as one, soldier and shadow, calm in imitation of purpose. The drill is just training, but in the right light, it feels like war trying to rehearse itself again. The second round of blanks detonates too close. The air becomes a wall of concussion, shaking dust loose from overhead beams. Lucas's hearing fractures into a high, ringing whistle. For a heartbeat, the past overlays the present. Desert heat, real shrapnel, real blood. His vision narrows, pulse spiking. Morse senses it before logic returns. He presses against Lucas's thigh, grounding him with weight and warmth. The world flickers between memory and now, the thunder of drills, the silence of trauma. Lucas drops to a knee, breathing through the noise. Instructors shout for medics, but Morse refuses to move, anchoring his handler until the ringing ebbs. The drill continues around them,
chaos moving like wind through reeds. When Lucas finally looks up, the dog hasn't looked away once. In that shared stillness, command is restored, not through rank, but through trust born inside the body.
A few yards away, Private Aidan Cross documents the exercise for training review, camera mounted to his vest, recording by habit. Through fogged glass, he catches the image no one staged. A kneeling Marine, motionless, hand on a silent dog's back while explosions bloom behind them. The composition accidental, the timing perfect. When the drill ends, Aidan reviews the footage. Something about the stillness amid chaos feels sacred, like proof that calm can be louder than fire. Without overthinking, he trims the clip, adds a line of text, "Courage is quiet," and posts it to the unit's internal feed. Within hours, it spreads beyond the base network. By nightfall, strangers share it across timelines with words like healing, loyalty, peace. The story that began in fog finds new weather and light. The next morning, Lucas wakes to a storm of a different kind. Notifications pinging, reporters calling, public affairs demanding statements. The clip has reached millions. Comment sections flood with gratitude, veterans sharing memories, families writing prayers. "The silent dog who saved a soldier from his past," one headline reads. Lucas stares at the screen, unsure whether to feel seen or exposed. Outside, Morse lies under the porch, chewing nothing, eyes half closed in sun. Fame moves like wind, uninvited, invisible, impossible to contain. At breakfast, strangers ask to take photos. The chow hall buzzes with pride disguised as gossip. For most, it's inspiration. For Lucas, it's intrusion. He deletes the clip from his own feed, but can't delete the feeling that something private has been borrowed by the world.
By midweek, camera crews arrive in convoy, white vans, parabolic mics, lenses large as rifles. The base transforms into a set, cords snaking through hallways, officers rehearsing talking points. Hana Seo leads a demonstration, explaining the echo effect, her term for the synchronized calm Morse evokes. Lucas stands off-frame, arms crossed, trying not to watch. When the reporter finally approaches, mic extended, he answers politely but briefly. The real story, he thinks, isn't words, it's breath shared between species. Behind them, Morse sits patient as ever, tail sweeping dust in steady rhythm. Under studio lights, the sheen of his coat catches gold. The footage will later headline national broadcasts, but what the cameras miss is what happens after. The way Morse steps forward, nudges Lucas's hand, and grounds him back in silence once the noise departs. Public attention swells like surf and then stays, relentless. Messages pour in. Strangers send collars, toys, thank you letters. Lucas keeps none of it. At night, he walks the perimeter road alone, phone turned off, world reduced to breath and gravel. Fame tastes like static, loud, empty, echoing through memory's scars. Inside the barracks, Morse waits by the door, as if counting heartbeats until his handler returns. When Lucas finally sits beside him, the dog presses against his side, matching his inhale for inhale. The noise outside fades again, replaced by the same rhythm that once saved him from panic. The world might call him hero, but here, in the hush between duty and dusk, he is only a man relearning the luxury of silence.
Dr. Seo's proposal reaches command, a program based on Morse's effect, integrating silent canine therapy into trauma rehabilitation. Charts, testimonials, medical metrics fill her slides. Captain Pike listens, arms folded, calculating. The pitch is simple: controlled exposure, regulated breathing, nonverbal bonding. We train them to hear what soldiers can't say, Hana concludes. Approval comes faster than expected. They name it the Echo Project, honoring the dog
whose silence taught them sound. When she tells Lucas, he nods, half proud, half uneasy. Progress is a strange form of goodbye. It turns miracles into systems. Later, Hannah kneels beside Morse, whispering nothing, just resting her hand on his fur. Some experiments begin where language ends. Command sends official recognition, promotion, commendation, and a directive for public relations tours. Lucas reads the memo twice, jaw tightening. He has followed orders all his life, but this one feels wrong. He isn't built for microphones. Morse isn't built for spectacle. Still, orders stand. The next week, they travel to a nearby base for a brief ceremony. Applause rises, cameras flash. Morse sits unmoved amid the noise. Lucas salutes, but his eyes drift to the horizon, where drills continue and life carries on. Heroism feels smaller in daylight, heavier in echo. When the event ends, he pockets the medal without looking at it. For him, the true award already walks beside him, breathing steady, asking for nothing.
Back at Camp Hale, mail arrives in stacks. Children's drawings, notes from veterans, stories from grieving families. One envelope stops Lucas cold, a handwritten letter from a boy named Jake. His father, a soldier, died overseas. The child writes, "When your dog stayed quiet, it felt like my dad saying, 'It's okay.'" Lucas reads it twice, breath catching halfway through. He shows it to Hannah, who doesn't speak. She just nods, eyes wet. That night, Lucas pins the letter above his bunk, beside the old collar marked racks. The paper flutters each time the door opens, whispering like wind through memory. In a place built for noise, a child's words become the softest sound that still carries. Weeks later, the attention wanes but never disappears. Camp Hale glows gentler under dusk. Its inhabitants move slower, more mindful. Lucas walks the drill yard as floodlights switch on, each cone of light cutting through dust like hope made visible. Morse trots beside him, older somehow, or maybe just wiser. The base PA system hums faintly in the background, announcing next rotations. Everything feels routine again, yet different. Less machine, more heartbeat. Lucas stops at the edge of the parade ground, watching recruits finish their laps. For once, he doesn't see a battlefield in their faces. He sees the possibility of calm continuing after he's gone. The dog sits, eyes reflecting amber in artificial light. Lucas exhales. We did enough, he thinks. The base breathes with him. Silence answers back, not emptiness, but completion.
Paper rustles louder than wind when it carries orders no one wants. The envelope is thin, stamped in red. Canine transfer, Nevada Tactical Training Facility. Lucas stares at the line until it stops meaning words. Across the desk, Captain Pike's voice is even. Command wants to study him. Official protocols. It's said like praise disguised as punishment. Lucas folds the paper carefully, as if gentleness might rewrite it. Outside, Morse waits under a rusted awning, eyes half-lidded, unaware of bureaucracy's reach. The air smells like coming rain. Lucas crouches, hand brushing the dog's neck. They think they can own calm, he mutters under breath. Thunder answers faintly, low and distant. Somewhere inside, defiance begins to take shape, not in rebellion, but in quiet refusal to let the world turn empathy into data. Hannah doesn't hide her frustration when she hears the news. Her lab feels too clean for anger. Every surface reflects control. He's not fit for combat conditioning, she argues, sliding test sheets across her desk. Charts show cortisol spikes near detonations, avoidance behaviors, refusal to attack on command. He heals through empathy, not aggression. Captain Pike listens, expression carved from discipline. Orders come from higher than science, Doctor. She exhales sharply, realizing the truth she hates.
Command values results more than reasons. When the door closes behind her, Hannah stares at the blank monitor where Morse's vitals used to pulse. For the first time, she feels the absence of that steady line like grief. In a place designed for precision, compassion has become an inconvenience. Still, she won't stop fighting for it.
Rumors travel faster than orders. By morning, everyone on base knows Morse is leaving. Recruits stop by the kennels between shifts, leaving small offerings, an old dog tag, a worn glove, scraps of jerky wrapped in napkins. Even the cooks from the mess hall bring leftovers for the hero. Lucas spends the day tightening bolts that don't need tightening, pretending the sound of the wrench can drown memory. That night, he sits beside the kennel in silence. Morse rests his head on Lucas's boot, eyes open, patient. Rain starts again, light but relentless, drumming a rhythm that feels like counting down. Lucas doesn't speak, the dog doesn't move. Two soldiers waiting for dawn, for orders neither believes in, but both will obey until a better choice appears. By midnight, the storm thickens. Lightning sketches brief worlds of silver across the barracks. Lucas writes a report. Request for temporary guardianship, canine Morse, pending reassignment. His handwriting shakes, but the words hold steady. When he delivers it at dawn, Captain Pike reads without comment. "You're volunteering to take responsibility?" he asks. "Yes, sir, until he finds where he belongs." Pike studies him for a long time, then signs the form. "Don't make me regret it, Sergeant." Outside, the rain softens to mist. Lucas walks back to the kennel, paper folded in his breast pocket, heart lighter than it should be. When Morse sees him, tail flicking once, he doesn't bark, just presses his forehead against Lucas's chest. That quiet contact is the only signature that matters.
2 days later, the truck hums along a ribbon of wet asphalt, stretching toward the northern horizon. The Pacific fades behind them. Mountains rise ahead, cold and blue. Inside the cab, the radio murmurs country static between stations. Lucas drives in silence, one hand resting near the dog, who watches every mile roll by. Road signs blur: Los Angeles, Sacramento, Klamath, Bend. Civilization thins until only pine and sky remain. At rest stops, strangers recognize Morse from the viral clip. Kids run up shyly. The dog greets each one with patience that feels rehearsed by kindness itself. Lucas buys coffee, glances once at the old collar hanging from the mirror. Racks. Canine. The road hum blends with breathing. Somewhere between duty and peace, they both start to belong to the same quiet. Dusk falls pale over Bozeman. The truck turns down a gravel lane lined with birch trees, shaking silver leaves. A handmade wooden sign waits at the gate, Morse's Rest. The farmhouse beyond it glows amber through the fog of evening. Margaret Hale steps out to meet them, tall, composed, her silver hair tied neatly under a knitted shawl. Her smile carries both welcome and memory. "You must be Sergeant Ward," she says softly. The air smells of cedar and bread. Lucas introduces the dog. Morse walks forward, ears high, tail measured, as if recognizing home before permission. Margaret kneels with care, touching his fur. "You sound just like my husband's old partner," she whispers, voice trembling. Lucas looks away, swallowing words. Some returns don't need explanation. They only need witness. The first week feels like calm incarnate, until the air changes. The sky darkens strangely one afternoon, light bending through amber smoke. A wildfire burns 12 miles west, pushed by desert winds. Sirens echo from the valley, volunteer trucks rumbling past. Margaret stands at the porch, face pale but steady. Lucas helps stack sandbags along the fence line, ash falling like snow. That night, wind shifts suddenly, carrying embers across the fields. Morse stiffens, head lifting toward the woods beyond the barn. The smell of burning pine grows sharper.
Back inside, Lucas orders out of habit. But the dog bolts, vanishing into smoke. Lucas curses, grabs a flashlight, and runs into the red, dark world where everything familiar becomes silhouette and sound. Smoke claws the throat. Every breath tastes of earth and fire. Lucas moves low, calling silently, flashlight cutting thin lines through ash. Then, movement, a flicker of fur, a whine swallowed by heat. He finds Morse near the tree line, digging at the dirt beside a collapsed shed. Beneath the beam, two frightened shapes, a pair of goats trapped under fallen timber. Without hesitation, Lucas joins them. The air pulses with flame, the wood groans. Together, they haul debris aside, the dog pulling at fabric and rope. When the animals scramble free, they flee into darkness. A branch cracks above. Morse barks once, the sound raw, alive. Lucas grabs his collar and runs as the shed collapses in a roar of sparks. They dive into the grass, breath colliding with wind. Behind them, the world burns, but not everything is lost.
By morning, the fire shifts north, leaving the valley bruised but standing. Charred fields stretch like a scar under pastel skies. Lucas and Margaret walk the property, boots crunching over blackened earth. Smoke still drifts from the ridge, but the farmhouse endures. Morse limps slightly, fur singed near his flank, yet his gait is proud, tail high. Neighbors arrive with supplies, stories, disbelief. "That dog saved half the farm," someone says, and it spreads like scripture. Margaret touches his head gently, tears balanced between pride and sorrow. "He just went where help was needed," Lucas murmurs. The ash drifts softly around them, glowing in the new sun. Survival looks less like victory, more like grace. Weeks later, snow replaces ash. The farm sleeps under white silence. Smoke curls from the chimney, the fences stand repaired. Margaret tends to the animals while Morse patrols the perimeter with quiet authority. Lucas, now a visitor rather than a soldier, splits wood by the barn, listening to the rhythm of each strike. The world feels smaller but whole. Inside, a newspaper clipping hangs near the fireplace. Silent sentinel saves farm animals from fire. No medals, no ceremony, just truth printed plainly. At night, they sit by the fire, Margaret knitting, Lucas writing, Morse sprawled across the rug, chest rising with calm certainty. Outside, the wind hums across the frozen fields. Inside, the warmth breathes like memory, learning peace. For the first time, no one needs to be rescued.
Winter deepens into a hush that feels earned. The farm is whole again, rebuilt not by haste but by gratitude. Lucas remains longer than planned, repairing fences, fixing tools, finding purpose in small labor. Margaret notices how he listens now, to creaking wood, to wind, to the slow rhythm of Morse's breathing. The dog has healed. His coat has grown thick again, marked by one faint scar that gleams silver under lamplight. Each evening, he patrols the frozen yard, paws leaving disciplined tracks across snow. When he pauses, the valley's silence folds around him like respect. Lucas sometimes stands at the window, coffee cooling in his hands, watching that steady silhouette against the pale horizon. Peace, he realizes, isn't quiet because nothing happens. It's quiet because everything that matters already has. The envelope arrives in March, stamped with the Marine crest. Inside, a short notice. Sergeant Lucas Hale, honorably discharged, commendation for service, re-enlistment optional. No speeches, no ceremony. Just the final punctuation of a long chapter. He folds the letter once, then slides it beneath the newspaper clipping on Margaret's mantle. The symbols of duty and rest now share the same frame. Outside, Morse stretches in sunlight that smells faintly of thawing earth. Lucas joins him, kneeling to tighten a collar engraved with two names, Rax Morse. The gesture isn't goodbye, it's inheritance. In the distance, mountain runoff carves new streams through the valley,
whispering the oldest military truth. Every mission ends, but discipline remains in the hands that remember how to care.
Spring brings footsteps to the gate. A van unloads quiet guests, 3 veterans and a child. They've driven from the city after reading the newspaper story about the dog that saved the farm. Margaret welcomes them with coffee. Lucas clears space in the barn loft. The child, small and solemn, reaches out cautiously. Morse lowers his head, letting the boy's fingers trace his muzzle. A soundless exchange passes, curiosity answered by calm. Within minutes, laughter returns to a place that had forgotten it. Margaret watches from the porch, eyes glistening. Healing, she thinks, doesn't travel in words, it travels in presence. When the visitors leave at dusk, tire tracks cut across mud and wild violets. The farm feels different, wider somehow, as if every story that ends here carries another toward beginning. Weeks later, Hana Seo's letter arrives, typed on new letterhead. The Echo Foundation for Veteran and Canine Recovery. The program born from Morse's example has grown. Therapy dogs paired with returning soldiers, silence used as language. She invites Lucas to serve as consultant. He reads the proposal twice beneath the old oak tree, while Morse lies at his feet, tail brushing dandelions. Margaret listens quietly as he decides. "Go," she says. "You taught him, now let him teach others." That evening, Lucas walks the perimeter once more. The sunset spills over snow-melt ponds, painting gold across the scars of last year's fire. Morse trots beside him, steady as always. The world doesn't need speeches, only continuance. And sometimes continuance begins with a single step back towards service, shaped by gentleness instead of command.
Summer hums like a slow hymn. Veterans arrive weekly, each carrying unseen weight. Lucas demonstrates simple routines, steady breathing, eye contact, mutual pacing. Morse moves among them, neither performing nor obeying, simply existing in a way that steadies pulse and thought. Cameras film occasionally, but the real work happens off-record. A soldier's first full night of sleep, a tremor that finally stills. At twilight, they gather near the barn while crickets stitch sound into the air. Margaret reads from her notebook, words about resilience written in longhand. Kindness, she says, is the quietest discipline. No one applauds. They just breathe together. Morse lies between them, eyes half closed, body absorbing the peace he once had to learn. Healing, like training, repeats until it feels natural again. One morning, Lucas finds the original collar, worn leather, brass tag dulled with years. Rax's name is nearly unreadable. He places it beside Morse's new one on the table, 2 circles of service touching like joined histories. Margaret polishes both with oil, hands trembling slightly. "Some things don't end," she murmurs. That night they hang side by side on a wooden peg above the hearth. The firelight flickers across them, casting twin halos on the wall. Outside, wind drifts through tall grass, carrying the scent of pine. Lucas feels the old ache in his ribs, not pain, but reminder, the echo of every mission completed without applause. Morse lifts his head briefly, ears twitching, then settles again. Time, at last, salutes and moves on.
By October, the valley turns copper. Children from the nearby school visit for an animal and service field day. They run across the fields where ash once lay, chasing sunlight. Morse guides them gently, herding with soft nudges and patient glances. Margaret photographs quietly, capturing motion and grace. Lucas stands with the teacher who asks, "Is he retired?" Lucas smiles. "No, just redeployed to peace." Later, after the buses leave, leaves rustle against the fence line,
echoing the laughter now stored in air. Autumn dusk folds over the farm like a flag at rest, colors lowered, honor intact. The seasons salute in their own way. Winter returns slower this time, softer. One evening, Lucas notices Morse hesitate before climbing the porch steps. Age has finally caught up with strength. They walk the perimeter together anyway, their shadows long over frost. Halfway down the path, the dog stops, gazing toward the ridge where the fire once raged. He exhales a long, contented breath, then leans against Lucas's leg, weight warm and final. No struggle, no fear, just a closing of circles. Lucas carries him inside, lays him by the hearth, and sits beside him until the breathing fades into the rhythm of crackling wood. Outside, snow begins again, falling silent over tracks that will stay visible until morning light.
Spring finds the farmhouse quieter, yet fuller. Margaret hosts veterans every month. Hannah's foundation sends new trainees. In the barn hangs a framed photo, Lucas and Morse during that first rescue under red lights. Visitors always pause before it, sensing something wordless in the captured stillness. Lucas now teaches remotely, voice low, eyes distant but peaceful. Each lesson ends the same: listen before command. The motto spreads through bases, clinics, and classrooms. Somewhere, another dog learns to mirror calm. Another soldier learns to breathe through panic. The world doesn't notice the lineage, but it grows all the same. An inheritance carried in silence. Years later, the farm stands unchanged, except by love. Dawn spills gold across the mountains, melting the last frost. Lucas walks the ridge alone, boot prints parallel to paw prints fossilized in mud. He stops where Morse once paused and looks toward the valley. Smoke from chimneys rises straight, unbroken. Somewhere below, Margaret's laughter drifts through open windows as morning chores begin. Lucas removes his cap, closing his eyes against the light. The wind carries faint scents of cedar, ash, and the ocean he left behind. He whispers a single word: rest, and the land seems to answer. The camera would pull back now, wide and slow. One man, one memory, one promise kept. No soundtrack needed, only breath, wind, and light. The story ends where peace begins.